Welcome to my course on writing documentation for REST APIs. In this course, instead of just talking about REST APIs in an abstract sense, I'm going to contextualize REST APIs with a direct, hands-on approach. You'll learn about API documentation in the context of actually using an API. You'll use a very simple weather API to put a forecast feature on your site. The point is that as you use the API like a developer, you're going to learn a host of details about the API world, about REST APIs in particular. You'll learn about endpoints, parameters, you'll learn about data types, authentication, curl, JSON. You'll learn about the command line, Chrome's developer console, and lots of other details associated with REST APIs. The point is that rather than learning about these concepts independent of a context, you learn about them best by immersing yourself in a real scenario and actually using an API. Now, after you have used an API as a developer, you'll then shift perspectives and you'll become a technical writer, as you probably already are, tasked with documenting a new endpoint that has been added to the API. So as a technical writer, you're going to tackle each element of a reference topic in typical REST API documentation. These reference elements usually include resource descriptions, endpoint definitions and methods, parameters, of course, sample requests and sample responses, error codes, and code samples. So diving into these sections is going to give you a solid understanding about how to document a REST API. Now later in the course, we'll explore different ways to publish the REST API documentation, not necessarily create the content, but how you deliver it. And we'll explore tools and specifications such as Swagger, API Blueprint, RAML, README.io, Jekyll, and maybe some more. So you'll learn during this kind of publishing section how to leverage templates, how to build interactive API consoles so users can try out requests and they can see the responses directly on the page. You'll learn about just different ways to host and publish REST API documentation. Now finally, in the last part of the course, you'll learn about native library APIs. These are APIs such as Java APIs or C++ APIs and how to document them. You'll generate a Java doc, you'll update some parameters, some class descriptions. You'll see how the different tags in the Java doc affect what's included in the output. Now, because the purpose of the course is to help you learn, there are lots of activities that require hands-on coding and other exercises. Now, interspersed with those activities, though, there's going to be more conceptual deep dives. But the focus in my philosophy of learning is that we learn best by doing. So I try to give you as many activities as possible to immerse you in REST API documentation. Now this course is intended to be sequential, walking you through a series of concepts and activities that build on each other. But of course, if you find things are too easy or slow, feel free to skip ahead. As far as a technical background that's needed to succeed in this course, you really don't need to know any kind of programming language, but it will be helpful just to know some basic HTML, CSS, some simple JavaScript. And if you do have familiarity with some of these programming concepts, you can skip ahead, speed up to the topics where you're actually getting value. But overall, I assume that you're a beginner, and so I'm not going to just expect that you already know a lot of technical details that maybe you're still learning. Some of the code samples in this particular course do use JavaScript, and JavaScript may or may not be a language that you use when you document a REST API. But I guarantee you that when you do API documentation, there will likely be some language or platform that becomes really important to know. And in my view, JavaScript is one of the most practical and easy languages to become familiar with. So I think it does work well as a basis for some of the code samples in this introductory kind of REST API documentation course. So what do you need to get started here? Well, you'll need a text editor. Something like Sublime Text is a good option. Works on both Mac and Windows. But really any text editor will do. On Windows, you've got Notepad++, Komodo Edit. So choose a good text editor. You'll need the Chrome browser. Of course, other browsers work too, but Chrome has a special developer console that we'll be using. You will need the Postman REST client. This is a Chrome app. And this is what's going to allow you to make requests and see responses through a GUI client. Super helpful. You'll need curl installed. Curl is essential for making requests to endpoints from the command line. And I'll give you some tips on how to install that if you're on Windows where it's not going to be there by default. You'll need Git. Git is a version control tool that developers often use as they're collaborating on code. And a couple other things, FileZilla. We're going to publish some stuff onto a website. And you'll need a network connection. Your computer simply needs to be able to connect to a Wi-Fi network so that you can make requests. All right, let's get started.